In 1973, Muhammad Ali asked Bruce Lee a simple question that would change everything he thought he knew about greatness. Bruce Lee's response was so profound, so philosophically devastating, that it left the most talkative man in sports completely speechless for 10 minutes straight. No comeback, no jokes, no clever replies, just silence. Something that had never happened before and would never happen again. What Bruce said that day wasn't just about fighting. It was about the nature of greatness itself and why the wrong question can teach you more than any right answer ever could. July 1973, Los Angeles. Muhammad Ali was at the peak of his powers, training for his rematch with Ken Norton at a celebrity gym where athletes and movie stars crossed paths. Bruce Lee was there too, putting the finishing touches on Enter the Dragon, the film that would make him an international superstar. Though tragically, he wouldn't live to see it. He would die just 1 month later. They existed in different worlds, Ali in boxing, Bruce in martial arts and movies. They'd seen each other around, exchanged respectful nods, but had never really talked. That was about to change in the most unexpected way. One afternoon, Ali was between rounds on the heavy bag when Bruce walked past. Ali, never one to miss an opportunity for conversation, called out with his characteristic confidence. "Hey, Bruce, come here a minute." Bruce approached. He was smaller than Ali had expected, 5'7", maybe 135 pounds soaking wet compared to Ali's 6'3", 215 pounds of perfectly conditioned muscle. The size difference was almost comical, but what happened next would prove that physical dimensions meant nothing when it came to the power of ideas. Ali, in his typical playful way, started the conversation. "You know, I've been watching you work out. You're fast, real fast. But let me ask you something." He paused, that familiar Ali smile spreading across his face. "Could you beat me in a fight?" It was classic Muhammad Ali, half joke, half genuine curiosity, completely confident in what he assumed would be the obvious answer. After all, he was the heavyweight champion of the world. Bruce Lee was an actor who did choreographed fight scenes for movies. The question seemed to answer itself. But Bruce didn't respond immediately. He looked at Ali for a long moment, studying him with those intense dark eyes. Then he said something that nobody in that gym, least of all Muhammad Ali, expected. "That's the wrong question." Ali's smile faded slightly. "What do you mean, wrong question?" What came next would be one of the most profound conversations in sports history, though it would remain secret for 40 years. "You're asking if I could beat you in a fight," Bruce explained calmly. "But there are so many questions inside that question that you haven't asked yet." He continued with methodical precision. "Could I beat you in a boxing match following boxing rules?" "No, absolutely not. You're the greatest boxer who ever lived. In your world with your rules, I couldn't touch you." Ali nodded, his smile returning. This was the answer he'd expected. But Bruce wasn't finished. "Could I beat you in a real fight? No rules, life or death?" "Probably. Not because I'm better than you, but because I've trained my whole life for that kind of fighting." "You've trained your whole life for boxing?" "Different purposes." The smile was gone again. Ali was listening now, really listening. "But here's the real question you should be asking," Bruce continued, his voice taking on a philosophical weight that filled the space around them. "Why does it matter? What are we really trying to prove?" He stepped closer, not aggressively, but with the intensity of someone delivering an important truth. "You're asking if I could beat you because you want to know if you're the greatest fighter alive. But Muhammad, you already know you're the greatest boxer. Why do you need to be the greatest at everything?" Ali started to respond, but Bruce held up a hand. "Let me tell you what I think. I think you're asking the wrong question because you're afraid of the wrong thing. You're not afraid that I might beat you in a fight. You're afraid that there might be someone, somewhere, who's better at something than you are. And that fear is making you ask a question that has no good answer." The weight of this observation hit Ali like a physical blow. He sat down on a nearby bench, the bustling gym continuing around them. People hitting bags, jumping rope, sparring, but in that moment, it was just Ali and Bruce, locked in a conversation that was redefining everything. "Keep talking," Ali said quietly. "You want to know if I could beat you," Bruce continued, "but think about what you're really asking. You're the heavyweight champion. I'm a 135-pound martial artist. We're not even in the same category. It's like asking if a lion could beat a shark." He paused, letting that analogy sink in. "The answer depends entirely on where they're fighting. In water, the shark wins. On land, the lion wins." Neither answer tells you which animal is greater. So you're saying there's no answer? Ali asked, genuinely intrigued now. I'm saying there's a better question. Not could you beat me, but what are we each trying to master? You're trying to master boxing. I'm trying to master fighting without rules. We're both trying to master ourselves. The real question isn't who would win. It's who's closer to mastering what they're meant to master. Ali was processing this, his quick mind working through the implications. Then he asked, so what's your answer to the original question? Could you beat me or not? Bruce smiled. Not arrogantly, but with the patience of a teacher approaching a crucial lesson. I'll answer that if you answer this first, could you beat me in a boxing match? Yeah, easy, Ali said without hesitation. In a street fight, no rules. Ali hesitated for the first time. I don't know, maybe not. No, ask yourself, Bruce said gently. Does that answer make you less great? And that's when it hit Ali like a thunderbolt. The question wasn't about winning or losing. It was about what great meant in the first place. Ali had spent his whole life proving he was the greatest boxer. But somewhere along the way, he'd started needing to prove he was the greatest at everything. The greatest fighter, the greatest athlete, the greatest man. And that need, that compulsion to be the best at everything, had become a prison of his own making. For the first time in his adult life, Muhammad Ali had nothing to say. He sat there in complete silence. Not because he was angry or upset, but because his entire framework for understanding greatness had just been challenged by someone who weighed 80 pounds less than him. Bruce sat with him, not awkwardly, but companionably. He understood that sometimes silence is the only appropriate response to a truth you've never considered before. The minutes ticked by. 1, 2, 10. Muhammad Ali, the man who had never met a moment of silence he couldn't fill with words, remained completely speechless. Finally, after exactly 10 minutes, Ali spoke. So you're saying I've been asking the wrong questions my whole life? No, Bruce replied thoughtfully. I'm saying you've been asking the right questions for boxing, but now you're asking boxing questions about life, and life doesn't follow boxing rules. What are the life rules then? There aren't any, Bruce said. That's the point. In boxing, you know the rules. 3-minute rounds, count to 10, hit above the belt. In life, the rules change depending on what you're facing. The only real skill is adaptability, being able to change your approach when the situation changes. Like water, Ali said, remembering Bruce's famous philosophy. Bruce's eyes lit up. Exactly like water. Water doesn't fight, it flows around obstacles. It adapts to whatever container it's in. But it's also the most powerful force on Earth. It carved the Grand Canyon. It can wear down mountains, not by fighting them, but by being flexible enough to flow around them while still moving toward its destination. They talked for another hour, the conversation ranging from fighting to philosophy, from what it meant to be famous to the burden of being constantly expected to prove yourself to people who didn't understand what you were trying to do. Ali told Bruce about his exile from boxing, about being stripped of his title, about the pressure to be not just a great boxer but a civil rights leader, a religious symbol, a cultural icon. Bruce shared his struggles with being typecast in Hollywood, about being seen as a martial arts novelty rather than a serious actor, about the pressure to represent all Asian people while being told he was too Chinese for American audiences and too American for Chinese audiences. They found common ground in their shared experience of being simultaneously celebrated and limited by the very things that made them special. As their conversation wound down, Ali asked one final time, so what's your honest answer? Could you beat me? Bruce thought for a moment, then replied with characteristic wisdom, in a phone booth, yes. In a boxing ring, no. In a field with no rules and no time limit, I don't know. We'd probably both get tired and call it a draw. Then he added something that would stay with Ali forever. But here's what I do know. I respect what you've mastered. You respect what I've mastered. Neither of us needs to beat the other to prove we're great. We just need to keep mastering our crafts. But what if someone made us fight? Ali asked. What if there was no choice? Then we'd both lose, Bruce said simply. Because any fight between two masters is a waste of what they've spent their lives building. It's like asking Picasso to fight Shakespeare. Even if one of them wins, the world loses because now one of those masters is damaged or dead. The real victory would be finding a way not to fight. They shook hands, two masters recognizing each other's greatness without needing to diminish their own. It would be the last time they saw each other. Bruce Lee died just 1 month later in July 1973 at the age of 32. Ali never spoke publicly about that conversation, but it changed something fundamental in how he approached the rest of his career and his life. Years later, when his friend Jim Brown asked him about that day, about why he had sat in silence for 10 minutes, Ali's response revealed the depth of the lesson he'd learned. He told me that being the greatest at one thing doesn't mean you have to be the greatest at everything. Ali explained. And that the need to prove you're the best at everything is just ego talking, not greatness talking. That shut you up for 10 minutes? Jim asked incredulously. No, Ali replied with characteristic honesty. What shut me up was realizing he was right. The story remained private until 2013, when Jim Brown finally shared it in an interview. The conversation had been kept secret for 40 years because Ali felt it was too personal to share while Bruce's family was still grieving, and then too much time had passed. When the story finally emerged, it revealed something profound about both men. Bruce Lee hadn't claimed he could beat Muhammad Ali. He had done something far more powerful. He had refused to play the game of comparison altogether, offering instead a different framework for thinking about greatness. And Muhammad Ali, in his 10 minutes of silence, had experienced something rarer than any victory. He had learned that the competition he thought he was in wasn't the one he should be fighting. The lesson Bruce taught that day, that mastery matters more than dominance, that respect matters more than victory, that the question, could you beat me, is less important than, what are we each trying to achieve, stayed with Ali for the rest of his life. In the late 1990s, when Parkinson's had severely limited Ali's ability to speak, a young boxer asked him who the greatest fighter he'd ever seen was. Ali took a long time to answer, then wrote on a notepad, me in boxing, Bruce in fighting. Different questions. Even in physical decline, the philosophical depth of Bruce's lesson remained crystal clear. True greatness isn't about proving you're better than everyone else. It's about mastering what you're meant to master and recognizing the mastery in others. The day Muhammad Ali asked Bruce Lee if he could beat him, he learned that sometimes the most important victories come not from getting the right answer, but from discovering you've been asking the wrong question all along.